Go. Okay, good morning. Dick Adams. I'm sitting in for Peter Laughlin, who is in St. Augustine, Florida. Deb Shag, I think, is in West Virginia. Who else? I do it?
I think so.
Anyway, I have a couple of show and tell items for you. Some of you've seen. This is a piece of lignum vitae, the hardest wood known to man. Surprisingly heavy. There's a hardness scale. I looked it up, and it's. I'm not sure exactly what the hardness relates to or how they can measure it, but it's in the 4,500 range, whereas white pine is, or yellow pine is 600. That kind of difference. And we have this tree book here.
Oh,
Pat,
yeah.
can I
I'm
just-
shocked I brought that in for you.
That's not the size of that one.
Don't drop it on the foot.
It's
Woods.
All right, the first item of business is the acceptance of the March minutes. Any comments, corrections? If not, they stand approved as presented.
Okay.
For the Harvard Street trees, should we take them as a block or individually?
Yeah.
Want to comment on them?
Yeah, I can just briefly comment. They're all heavily decayed, you name it. They're pretty much, if they're not dead, they are gonna be falling over and dead at the next heavy rainfall. They're just hanging on by a thread, so I don't think it's much of a question.
So who's gonna take those trees down? If we vote?
That was Eversource request, so that'd be Scott.
We have a motion,
I'll move. I'll second.
discussion. Those in favor of removal of all 5 trees?
Aye.
So moved. All right, for Greenleaf Avenue, we have 2 red maples. Chuck,
Yeah, that's another request from Scott, which is understandable. They're unfortunately leaning over the triple phase and they're only getting wider. That's also leaving, I believe there's 2 more that aren't as bad. Instead of taking them off, so he's looking at the 2 worst ones. One has some decay in the base, and one has some decay in the canopy as well. I think long term, it makes sense. We can still use that right away to plant some better species that are suitable for that area. Any comments?
Yeah, the black cherry that's next to it, the one that's on private property.
Yep.
It's kind of coming out over the road. That one's not one that you guys are gonna proposing to take out.
It wasn't, I haven't really looked super close at it, focusing more on the hazard part of the trees, not something that might just be leaning and still be healthy.
To me, that one seems to be a lot closer to the lines.
It may be closer, but again, it may not be within real closeness that concerns us. I'd be happy to take another look at it.
It's 2.
want to move that question?
I'll make a motion that we remove that Eversource removes those trees.
To remove. Second,
I'll second.
discussion.
Would you eventually take all 4 of those?
It'd have to depend on what they look like down the road. Again, we're not trying to deforest Portsmouth. If they stay healthy, then I just assume they stay right there.
Those in favor of removal?
Aye.
So moved. All right, Dave.
Just went out taking your club away. Good morning, members of the committee. Dave DeFossis, Public Works. We're here at Tyler Reese behind me too, and Mark Tatler are here together with me today. We're working on a series of projects. There's 4 things I want to talk about today. And Peter, if you just bring one up at a time, I'll just talk to them in whatever order you bring them up. Last week, we were talking, or last month when we were here, we were talking about the Bridge Street lot. Anybody who's driving around noticed that we pulled all the shrubbery out of the Bridge Street lot on Monday, and they are finishing any clearing today. So the proposed plan on the bottom side of that sheet is to actually put in a planting bed along Bridge Street so that the parking lot is screened on all 4 sides. That's the ultimate plan. The entire parking lot's being slid toward Maplewood Avenue, about 4.5 feet. To do that, we are eliminating what was the interior concrete sidewalk so that people are creating pathways every so often to get to the main sidewalk out on Maplewood Avenue. That's how we're doing that. So we thought it was a worthy endeavor. The parking lot needed to be reconstructed, so we're taking this opportunity to make some minor changes. The strip along Bridge Street is open. Public Works will plant that. And I don't know, Chuck, what process, if any, there is for selecting species for that, but I'll leave that to Chuck and his team. They know more about it than I do. There is one tree that we're removing or relocating. And Chuck, I called you about that yesterday. It's the ones that's shown right above the 2 handicap spots right there. It's a small tree. It's only about this big. So depending upon what Chuck decides, we can either relocate it down to one of those 2 trees to the left that's shown darker, or we can remove it and he can plant 2 new trees. Those are the new trees that are shown on that map right there. So that is Bridge Street as a whole. The upper end over by Islington Street is going to be designed as part of the Islington Street project. So we're going to leave that kind of a blank slate for now. We've removed the shrubbery. But other than that, we're not going to go into that area today. And get designed by the landscape architect that's doing Islington Street.
Are those shrubs being discarded?
Yes. They probably already been discarded at this point. So the second thing I'll talk about is Goodman Park. So I gave you some paper plans this morning.
But I just jumped out with a question.
Sure.
A handful of years ago, we planted some hawthorns along. Are they coming out?
So if it's just that one tree, I don't believe that one is a hawthorn, and I believe the 2 just down from that are hawthorns. So I don't believe so. I think this one is a crab apple from when I went by on Monday.
So neither one of those are getting to be picked.
Okay. All right.
I have a question. Chuck, so you'll select whatever is added to the lot? I mean, you're talking about the Hanover Street end?
When is that? getting
Along
planted?
Bridge Street, that planting bed will be ready for plants and trees within probably 4 weeks of today.
Okay, so have you ordered the trees? I mean, do we even know what they are? Will they?
I didn't want to presume and decide what tree species they would be. I figured we might have some trees left over from the planting process, and I was going to leave it to our arborists to decide what they should put there.
Okay,
Frankly,
thank you.
it's kind of out of my wheelhouse.
Yep.
We can do something there, probably trees to start, and work with Corin on smaller plants.
Okay, I was just curious if you'd already.
I have not, I actually have not, no, but
I mean, the beauty of this too is just, there's no real rush to make a decision.
Yeah.
You know, really, the big thrust for the timing is getting the asphalt down, getting the parking lot functional as Hanover Garage goes into construction.
Right,
So the landscape can follow, and it's, you know, if there's a desire to have more discussion, we can hold up on making any decisions.
no, I was just curious. Okay, thank you.
Is that an in-house job? the reconstruction,
It's
going out to bid.
it's gone out to bid, it's being managed by Dave and Mark, but it's being done by Advanced Paving. We don't have the bandwidth at this point to take on a project that size in the
We don't
downtown.
have the equipment,
We don't have the equipment either.
chew up the asphalt, we just don't have that type of stuff.
Okay, Dave?
Okay, so we'll switch over to the paper copies and. I guess- Okay, so Goodwin Park is being, is getting a new entrance as part of the Islington Street project. So I gave you two sheets. The first one is the park as it is right now with the new streetscape superimposed above it. You can see we're doing the brick accents with concrete sidewalks out on the streetscape. Chuck's been working with Jeff Highland on picking trees for the streetscape. And we're going to come back next month and give you a full report on the species that we picked for the streetscape. Those plans are sitting at about 94.5% right now. I'm expecting that by the time you see me next month, that project should be able to bid for construction. So depending upon if we get lucky or not, and find a contractor, we will or will not be building that phase 2 starting this summer. On the second sheet is the same superimposed streetscape above, but now it's showing a new main entrance to Goodwin Park. The brick entrance that comes in right from the center. The brick walls that are currently there will get rehabilitated. We're gonna put granite caps on them. They're, the water's getting into the wall right now, so that needs to be addressed as part of this. So some of the granite caps that we're removing, you notice that on either side, the two entrances that are there today are now being changed. So those are being changed to line up with the crosswalk on either side, so that people from the neighborhood can enter the park directly as they cross the street. So that's all being redone to be completely compliant with ADA. The brick surrounds that show up on the first page are being removed in those two spots. And the sidewalks are being realigned. There's no impact to trees part of this work. We will be adding some bollard lights along the main entrance for the black bollard lights that we used in the Bohemian Park out on Market Street. Are being chosen for that to provide lighting to enter the park. And the fence that currently is on the frontage of the park is being either rehabilitated or replaced depending on the cost. It's an aluminum fence, it's a good quality fence, but it at least needs to be reset and possibly a couple of sections replaced. Any have questions about the park?
So just a quick statement. The park is in need of additional attention at some point. The intent of this overall project was not a park rehabilitation project. It really drove from the fact that the streetscape side of Islington touched the park. And then we wanted to make sure that you didn't have a nice streetscape against a section of park that was, not as nice as the rest of the streetscape. So it really was just doing the what we felt made sense relative to the project in the street. It wasn't, at one point, the landscape architect started to do keep expanding. It's like, well, time out. We have a limited budget, limited time. The intent here is really to make the streetscape along Islington coherent. And also, as they pointed out, improve ADA, American Disability Act compliance. So that's really, so it wasn't, we weren't driving further deeper into the park.
Thank you.
If bids are chosen, this work will take place next summer, not this summer. It's in phase 2. The phase 2 line. But actually, the phase 2 line is actually shown on the plan. But I don't suspect that because we're getting a lead start, that we would be in here doing parkscaping this year. And if we did, it would be this fall. I guess that's my final statement on I guess the next thing is we've been working on sidewalk projects in multiple neighborhoods. State Street, Maple Haven, and Piano Manor are all going out to bid as one sidewalk project. And we're hopeful to get a bidder. Mark and I and Tyler have all been working on this project over the last couple of months. We've had a public meeting in this neighborhood. The neighborhood has asked and did ask for sidewalks in this neighborhood. A while ago, it was added to the CIP, Peter, 4 or 5 years ago.
6, 7,
Maybe
8
6 or 7.
years ago. It was long enough that people are getting upset.
Frustrated, yeah, so. Right now, Panaway has sidewalks on both sides of the street, they're 3 feet wide, they're unusable. They're unusable because of tree roots, quite frankly. We looked at narrowing the road to put the sidewalk over the paved surface. That doesn't work. The road is not wide enough here that we could do some kind of trimming project. The only place for the sidewalk, unfortunately, is the current location of the sidewalk. So internally, we made the decision that the best thing to do to limit the amount of trees that are going to be impacted was to replace the sidewalk on one side of the street only. The other side of the street would have the old sidewalk removed permanently. We looked at both sides of the street to count how many trees would be impacted. On the inner side versus the outer side, there are less trees under this proposed scenario, which this blue ring that's shown up on the screen in front of you shows tearing out the existing 3 to 3.5 foot asphalt sidewalk that's unusable, replacing it with a 5.5 foot wide sidewalk in its current location.
Concrete or asphalt?
Concrete. In order to do that, Mark and I walked around Monday and we have counted a final count. There are 28 trees that need to be removed in order to put in the sidewalk. Of note, there are 24 large trees and several small trees that will be remaining on that side. So about half the trees on that side of the street are being removed for the sidewalk project or want to be removed. The inner loop side, there are no tree removals. So we're saving all the trees on the inner loop and asking that we remove about half the trees on the outer loop so that we can construct this sidewalk for the neighborhood.
About how old do you think those trees are?
I believe they're all original equipment. This neighborhood was built during World War II. So they're all about the same age and they're all mostly limbed, right?
Primarily, yeah.
I think there's 1 or 2 that are maples. One's a multi-stump maple that really is quite ugly. But in general, they're all limbed trees. So they haven't been posted yet. We've had a public meeting. The neighborhood is very much in favor of putting in the sidewalk. So at the next meeting, we'll be asking you to allow us to remove all the trees as part of the sidewalk project. We will send this project out to bid. If we have problems getting bidders, which seems to be, a problem lately for all aspects of construction, then we would rebid the project for next year. But as it stands right now, we are planning on bidding this project for construction this summer and this fall.
Residents aware of how many trees?
We have mentioned at the public meeting that there would be a large number. We did not give them an exact number. I believe at the public meeting, I told them 29, the number is down to 28.
As part of the process, we work closely with Chuck and the attempt is to try to minimize the damage to trees. And as you know, when you get into the roots of it, putting a sidewalk in, you're going down a foot, and you're gonna, if it's right next to the tree, you're gonna be damaging roots. So we do our best to try to figure out if there are ways to avoid, everything, as Dave said.
Hence the 24 trees are staying.
So,
But
It'll be interesting to follow those 24 trees that are staying and see what they look like over the
Yeah.
course of the next couple.
Yep.
Years after the project is
That's
done.
true.
if we thought they were gonna be damaged, we would have them on the list, but we think that we can successfully work around them without damage.
Sure.
so at the next meeting, we did not post them for this meeting because we figured it will stir a lot of, people will be very interested, seeing a bunch of flyers up on the trees along the whole area. So instead of, kicking the hornet's nest immediately, we wanted to bring it to you guys first. Right, you want to talk?
So do they have that, is that meeting scheduled at that next?
So the public meeting has been scheduled, has been had, and it's done.
Oh, okay.
Was there more on that stick, Tyler? No?
We're also, as I alluded to, we're also working in Maple Haven. Maple Haven has the exact same sidewalk setup. It's a little younger neighborhood. And as the name implies, we're doing maples, not lindens. But we're still in the design process and trying to decide what the scope in Maple Haven is. Seems to be a lot of controversy over what side of the street sidewalks go on. I hear a lot of, yes, we want sidewalks, but we want it on that side of the street, not our side of the street. And people on either side of the street are pointing to the other side of the street. So that is still working itself out, I guess. So we're not gonna talk about Maple Haven today. But we should have a good feel for what's gonna happen down there by the time we get to the next meeting.
So did you have a lot of that in Panaway Manor too? People saying, put it on the other side.
So, none of that.
Tale of two cities.
I've driven through there a bunch of times recently and everybody's walking up the street. And I just went through this one of those people walking, us going by, just, they don't use the walk sidewalk, so.
The streets are,
Maple Haven.
sidewalks are not usable. Yeah, and Maple Haven is literally just as bad. We have good data from good engineering data that says that under a certain amount of cars a day, and if cars are traveling at a certain speed, sidewalks really aren't warranted. So it might be one of those things that in Maple Haven, because the traffic patterns are different from Panaway. Panaway is a loop, you have to kind of go through there. But Maple Haven, once you get into the main entrance, you can split in 5 or 6 different directions. So the traffic counts may not be there. So we'll work through that design process and we'll be back next month for.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys, anybody have any more questions for me?
Would there be replantings out at Panaway?
I would imagine we'll do replantings once we get the sidewalk in. I'm sure there's gonna be more than enough grass strip left that there's room for trees. So I would imagine that we do a replanting effort the year after we get the sidewalk.
As long as we have, right away, I don't see why not.
We'll also reach out to homeowners, and make them aware that if they would like trees. As you recall, we're looking to plant 400 trees next year. So we're gonna be looking for places to plant trees.
Chuck, with regard to lindens, do they display a particular tendency to have the roots come up near the surface?
Not that I'm aware of, no, I haven't dealt with that, I mean, not any more than any other species. But I think Peter said, if we can, for the sake of having a efficient watering routine, we like to kind of reforest areas. So if we had, 50 trees planted in Panaway when that project's done, then we're reforesting that area and we can water efficiently as opposed to bouncing all over town.
That's a good question, Scott. Do you have any, what do you think about lindens and raising sidewalks? Are they any
like Chuck said, they don't, every species runs into a problem with root goings down, it's easier to come up, and push the surface up. You run into it with just about anything.
Any further questions for Dave?
No, but thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark and Tyler.
Thanks.
So Peter, you want to address the Arbor Day award?
I actually will defer to Chuck.
Yeah, no.
because It's his, it's the work that he and his crew do. I would like to give him the opportunity to speak to it.
So this year, every year we apply just for the growth award for different, what's the word I'm looking for, categories to meet. So this year, there's a few different categories. It was establishing a safety training program with the tree crew. So it's a little bit different than the past where it's, however, we qualify for many different areas. But this year we established a weekly safety training program for crew members, which is really important for us. And then also continuing education for crew members. So investing, thanks to Peter, on being able to send all members of the crew to ISA events, conferences, stuff like that, New Hampshire Arborist events. Then there was a third category, which I think was our, yes, it was our young tree training, which is not just planting trees and kind of abandoning them, but working on them for a 5-year pruning cycle that we have currently. So for 5 years, we rigorously go around and prune those. It doesn't take a lot of time, but having them on that list for the first 5 years of their life to do pruning that will last for many years to correct issues like codominant stems and stuff like that. So anyways, those were the factors this year. Just a quick update. Our trees arrived. All the weeks are blending into one now. I think it was last Monday, but we've already put in 70.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we hope to be pretty much done by the end of this week, and into watering. So there'll be 100 trees in the ground. I think we'll have a few extras that'll be kind of, the high school wants some trees, Don Darrow School wants some trees. So we save, a handful for stuff like that. But these trees will be in the ground by the end of this week. And then we still will do some ball and burlap plantings such as various projects. So Arbor Day, we can talk about that, but we'll plant a tree that day. That'll probably be a ball and burlap. Possibly Bridge Street. That's the first I've heard of that planting, but that would be a good, in 4 weeks, we can go to Milliken's and get some trees for that. So we'll still sprinkle in some trees, but our biggest thing is watering. We're right at maximum capacity for keeping them watered all summer, so we don't want to get too carried away. But anyways, it's just an update on where we're at with that.
So I'd like to just, I appreciate Chuck's acknowledging my effort, but it's really the effort of this committee, as well as the city council, that has continued to support this important investment in the city over the last 20+ years. And you all have spent a lot of time and effort. And I really, I can't say enough for that, because it really, as you know, the highway department and the public works department haven't historically been focused on trees and protecting trees. And through the education and through hiring some really good staff, we've been able to create a really good program. And the continued support of the committee, and that translated to council, has been really important. So I appreciate everything you guys do, and I really want to take this opportunity to thank you and the council for the continued support of the programs. And Chuck and his staff are outstanding. We are probably one of the best cities in the state, if not the country, relative to doing this stuff. So I'm really proud of the work they do.
I note that it wasn't that many years ago that we managed to do our planting in the peak of the drought season.
Yes. Well, I was
I'm
thinking
wondering why they all
about
died
it
off.
when they came in last week, it was a week early, I said, oh, they will be happy about this. But yes, it is key. They haven't even broken bud, which is good. There's a few just there's 4 of the taxodium species, which is bald cypress, that they do great bald and burlap, but they are tricky bare root, and we'll see how they do. But just a note on Arbor Day, so where the red pines were at Pierce Island, so the red pines are all gone. And
All of them?
they're all gone. Yep, they all were infested, and we worked with Cameron. And anyways, we finally removed those this winter. So we've already planted about 15 or 16 trees from this round, all different species out there. And we will plant even some more, as long as we want to have each species are large species, because there's no overhead utilities. So we want to be able to have them grow to be big specimens. So I don't think we're going to go as dense as it was before. That being said, Arbor Day, Friday the 29th, we think that'll be the spot. Well, we're planning on having it there at 8 a.m. Just to kind of kick off and conclude that reforestation project. We just think that'll be a good spot to do it. So anyways,
Will that be publicized?
yes, yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there.
Does the Pierce Island Committee have any input?
Yes,
Not as,
it's tough, because I went there and there's a lot of opinions at the committee, but at the end of the day, we removed the trees. Our trees were here, and I need to replant there because we just need to be replanting where we removed that many trees. So we just went for it in terms of putting new trees on that hillside, but I'm totally open to working with the Pierce Island Committee for if there's other ideas or more trees in other areas. I mean, there's still a lot of area on Pierce Island that we could do projects. I mentioned that Milwaukee Forest project that they did in Cambridge, and there was people interested in that, but I don't know. I mean,
the committee's involvement in operations is limited, and this is an operational approach from our side. So, we had staff there last night, they had a meeting. So I'm sure we'll get some feedback from them at that time.
and the 4 trees that are potentially not gonna make it, that we knew that are in the wet area just before that point. There are 4, we wanted to make a bald cypress grove there in that wet area. And if they don't make it, we're gonna try and still do that project with bald and burlap trees.
Oh, so you tried the bare root?
Yeah, the bare root works excellent. We had 96 out of 100 trees from last year do wonderful. It's just that species in particular. I don't know why, and neither does the wholesaler. He warned me, and I was like, oh, let's just try it anyways.
Interesting.
They may do fine, but they had a look, and I said, it's hard to find a lot of good buds on them.
How long have they been in the ground?
It's only been about a week. We had way worse trees last year that were fine. We had Zelkovas that broke bud at the end of June and did excellent the rest of the year and are full of bud for this year, so. who knows?
I remember you were concerned about that.
Yeah, yep, similar situation. It was just every now and then you get a species, and the same goes with bald and burlap trees.
Yeah. And they
Right.
like wet feet, right, the taxodium?
They do love the wet areas, but they also do really well in dry areas. So we will see. But if you walk by there and you're thinking, "Man, there's 5 trees that are dead, we're on it. We're gonna fix that."
You're leaving tags on all those trees?
Yep, they put the tags right on the tie, so you can go up and always see it. And I'll send an email with all the finalized sites here at the end of the week or
I
next
wanted
week.
to ask.
Yes,
right,
yep,
Yeah.
we'll have sites, species, everything ASAP. It's just there's a little bit of stuff moving around right now, so.
Great, thank you.
Okay, you wanna talk about the 400s?
So it's pretty much the same as we discussed before, that, we've got donations from the Rotary Club. The city's planning on their traditional 100. And then, working with AJ for the balance of them. I think it's probably something that we'll work with the 400th committee to start doing outreach. But probably what we'll do is put together a flyer or something like that for folks, run it by the committee first. But it will be word of mouth, just for the most part, I would think, because people don't always look at the advertisements and information out there. But it'll be a good opportunity if there are areas that you see where there are private properties that you say, geez, this would really be a beautiful spot to put some trees. And if you know these people, if you can reach out to them, that would be great. And so we're excited about this. It's gonna be, as Chuck said, it's all great, well, good to plant them, then you have to water them. So there's gonna be a little bit of gearing up to be able to cover that. There'll be some commitment and resources and time from our side to make sure we do the best we can to keep things watered. But we're excited about it. We think it's a great opportunity to kind of celebrate the 400th and at the same time, continue the work that this committee's been doing. So it's a good thing.
Excuse me, I'm Bob Berner from Eversource. I'm the Arborist Eversource down in the Portsmouth area. Scott shared your extensive planting plans with me, and Eversource would be interested in donating 10 trees, either in a celebration of Arbor Day or as part of your plan for 400.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you.
Chuck, Pat probably put words in my mouth, but she emailed me with a question about the committee getting involved at some level with cited species selection. A number of years ago, we used to do that. I realize this would add complexity to your already difficult job, but if there are members of the committee who would like to weigh in, it's primarily a way of learning more about trees and so on.
Yeah, so speaking on that, yes, we have to figure out how it works logistically, but we currently, so we have 100 trees and there's 19 species. Let's see, I think it would be a matter of maybe doing an initial I get a availability order form from the nursery, say around Christmas time. Maybe making that shareable with the committee and going from there as to what we want to include. It's tough because when I put the order in, oftentimes I'm rejected for the species I want. So I think it's important that we're all on the same page. But say Michael wants to see this planted. Oh yeah, no problem. They have 100 available, and then I put in the order. It's like, yeah, sorry, too late, or they all died. I mean, just because. But yes, I think that's important. But right now, currently, I just go super diverse. The only trees that we don't put in that they grow is really just more of the fruiting trees. But yeah, I think we look at what that would look like. Maybe it's just sending out the availability form when I get it around the holidays, having everyone review, and then maybe just having a meeting, putting it on the agenda where we just talk about species, things we don't want to see, things we want to see.
Chuck, is it possible to put together, I don't know how many years you have data for, but the types of trees that species of trees that we've planted over the last 5 years? And say, okay, so
absolutely.
Here's the 15 we tend to pick off of. Are we dominant on, we plant 90% of this one species, and because of. So that would be good. That'd be good information too, to say, if everybody wants the same thing, but we've already planted a bunch of them. We should be looking at other diversifying ones.
We don't want to slow down the process either.
No, I think
it's difficult.
I think having just sending out, maybe we just start an annual thing where I get it, I send it to everyone, and the next trees and greenery meeting, we verbally go over it. Because that's really the most realistic, because if it starts getting into, I I think sending specific trees via email, I can just see that turning into a nightmare. But if we just verbally meet and we could print off the list, go through species, and some, yeah, like Peter said, someone will want, some of these, oh, we just planted a bunch, but for the most part, as long as we keep it, we usually at the most have 8 of one species per year. So there's 19 species, 100 trees, and the most of that 100 is 8. It's usually trees that, it's usually the small trees that go under utilities. There's only so many species that growers grow of small flowering trees. And every city wants them. That's the thing. So we're battling cities much bigger than us, like Cambridge, it's 700 trees twice a year, that type of thing. So it's a battle.
Chuck, can we pre-order, like if we did, if we said, 2 years out, and then we put a deposit down, and we say, secure us 50 trees.
So the next, that is potential, which is also a battle, is to almost have our own plot at these wholesale nurseries, in a way. But there's other cities that want that too. So I tried the same thing with Amherst Nurseries. They basically grow, they're in Western Mass. They're growing Northampton's trees, a bunch of trees for Cambridge on these plots that they've reserved.
Oh.
It's possible. I could ask, we're in, at this point, very close contact with Schichtel's in Western New York, and they really have the room to do something like that. And
How
yeah,
many nurseries do you deal with?
we really, Bare Root is Schichtel's and Alden Burlap. There's a few in the area, but primarily Milliken nurseries, and then we'll work with Northern. It's sometimes Stratton Circle, but Milliken really has the best trees. But once again, we're only able to plant 100 trees because they're Bare Root. It wouldn't even be close to that number if they were Ball and Burlap. And as of right now, our success rate is equal, if not higher. There's only 4 trees last year that didn't make it, so we're big fans of that so far.
Does anyone have any old or new business? Yes,
Hi, good morning, everyone. Most of you all know who I am. I'm Scott Richardson, Northern Tree Service. I speak on behalf of Eversource. This morning, I just have a general question. There's a tree down at People's United Bank. I believe that's State Street in Fleet, the back corner of that parking lot. Eversource is looking to do some work at that parking lot, trim the trees back. And I contacted Cornerstone Tree Service, who manages the property for them. There is the potential that we would like to take a tree out from down there. It's starting to split apart. It could fall on the 3-phase on one of the short, narrow side streets. But his concern came up that there may be some statute or regulation as to the amount of shade cover needed in that parking.
We'll need to review that with the planning department to see if the site development plans had some requirements associated with that.
Okay.
And it may be an administrative change, or it may have to go to planning if that's the case, planning board.
Okay.
But I'm not aware of any restrictions on that. I know the Porter Street condos, which is across the street from that parking lot, on Porter Street, have some planting requirements associated with that. But I'm not sure about the parking lot.
I figured I needed a place to start. This was probably going to be the area.
Some of the discussion we've had in that in the past was planning gives them, requirements of planting for the initial owner or the initial setup for that property. But those planting requirements don't carry forward in perpetuity. We've run into that in a few different lots here in the city.
There are some that are like that. There's some that have it actually into their deeds that they're required to maintain. There's a couple out on Woodbury Avenue that are like that. So, but I can check and find out for you, Scott.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Like I said, Cornerstone was fairly agreeable to letting us take that tree out. They just didn't want to get hit with a surprise of, oh, now we got to put a tree back. How are we gonna do that?
Yep.
But I told them I would ask the board, and see what their thoughts were on it. Thank you for that, Peter.
But did you find the owner on that little cemetery on Echo Avenue?
As a matter of fact, I did, someone of the board members did send me a PO box here in Portsmouth, and I mailed them a letter. And I actually got a phone call last night from them that said, yes, that cherry tree could be cut down.
Wow.
I kind of thought that was just a lost cause, this was gonna be, can't find anybody kind of thing, but
I've seen photographs of that cemetery, probably Tallman era, early nineties. It was well maintained at that time. It seems to be in disrepair. I don't know if anyone's mowing it now or not.
I think it gets mowed very sporadically.
it didn't look overgrown,
Yeah.
overrun. It
Yeah.
was-
It's all back around.
And there's an ash tree right in the middle, isn't there?
Yeah, big one.
I think so, yeah.
That's the, wasn't that the one we
It
were
seemed
looking at?
fairly healthy,
It's
the
got a
cherry tree
ghost
was
on
holding
it.
right out.
It's got a ghost on it.
Yeah, believe me, it's just a P.O. box. We've done all sorts of digging.
That's all I have. Thank the board for all their cooperation that we've had throughout a year or so that I've been down this area, and I look forward to working with everybody else.
Thanks, Scott.
Where do you keep all your equipment?
Various locations, I think they're parking some of our stuff over in Greenland now. A lot of our efforts are concentrated more down towards Northampton and Greenland area.
For operation?
All right, if there's no further business, we're adjourned.
Right.
Thank you.
I emailed the city manager to say, you know, about Arbor Day.
Oh, good.
It's not really, we're just gonna plant a tree.
You wanna start with-